The main cost drivers for operating of a facility are really four buckets. The first bucket is maintenance. That's basically the labor, the material required to maintain the building. That would be preventive, predictive maintenance, and any type of non-destructive testing. The next bucket is repair. That's if something breaks. That's the labor, the material, any equipment that needs to be rented or used during the repair. The third bucket is really capital expenditures. That's long-term investments made in the renewal of assets. And the fourth is energy, whatever it takes to operate the building in terms of energy consumption. So there's a number of strategies that you can employ to minimize the energy consumption in a building when it's not full operation. Actually, the studies lately have shown that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the costs have only been reduced by about 25%, which is probably less than what most people would expect. But there are things that you can do to reduce energy in a building when you're minimally occupied. Really in a building, with energy, it starts with kind of the simple things. One of them is lighting, right? You're going to have, even if the building has minimum occupancy, you're still going to have some lighting available, but you have the ability to shut down lighting in areas that aren't being used. If you have the right type of controls and a way to do that in a building. Emergency lighting, obviously you got to keep that. Having areas lit in the evening, you got to make sure that you do that. The energy consumption of lighting can be anywhere between 10 up to maybe 20% of a building. So it's kind of the easy first thing that you can do to reduce energy in a building. The second thing that you can do to address energy consumption in a building that's minimally occupied would be things like appliances or office equipment. That could be as much as 10%. A lot of people consider that to be plug loads. There may be software available to shut off your plug loads when you have the opportunity to do that when the building's not, occupied at the full amount. The bigger items really come in areas of HVAC. Heating, ventilating, and air conditioning equipment utilizes over 50% of the building in most cases. And to be able to take advantage of a minimally occupied building would be to do a number of reset schedules. So if you think about a building the way you might operate on a Saturday or a Sunday, where you have minimum occupancy at that time, think about it during the week, Monday through Friday. And that really comes down to putting in what they call an unoccupied mode. So if the building's set at 72 degrees during the week, normally you may have a reset schedule where you reset it up to 85 degrees. You're not shutting it down completely, but what you're doing is you're resetting, and the equipment's not running as hard as it would be during normal operation. So there are some areas where you can reduce your maintenance costs when your building is minimally occupied. You have to be careful about it though, because equipment still has to run. Even though your building has very few people in it, you're still running the equipment. We don't recommend shutting the equipment off. So then what kind of maintenance can you avoid? It really comes down to the use of the building. You have to look throughout the building and see how it's being used. An example would be in your data center inside of a building. Obviously, you would want to continue to perform the same level of maintenance that you're doing in a data center. But if you have another part of the building that's minimally occupied and the equipment's not running as much, you may want to cut back on some of the frequency of maintenance, things like filters or greasing bearings, depends on how often it's actually running. The other thing that you could consider doing in a building to cut down on maintenance costs is move more towards a condition-based maintenance approach, where you're really not doing prescriptive maintenance on hours based on months or weeks. You're actually doing it on the condition of the equipment. You may or may not have the technology in place to do that, but that can actually reduce your costs significantly as well, is to cut back on the more prescriptive maintenance and really rely more on the condition of the asset itself. There may be some items that you may want to add to a maintenance program to prevent expensive failures in the future. And that would really come in the area of non-destructive testing. There could be some testing that you could do, like vibration analysis on equipment. You may want to consider infrared scanning of electrical distribution systems. These are non-destructive testing that can be done inside of a building that can avoid failures in the future. These are some of the, even though you may cut back on other maintenance items, the predictive maintenance, where again, vibration, infrared scanning, some testing may be very valuable to do when the building is in a place where you're not as occupied. There would be advice that I would give managers, facility managers of buildings that are minimally occupied at this time. And number one is really work smart and be careful about what you choose to shut off and not shut off in a building. One of the real hazards of completely shutting a building down is that you have to maintain certain humidity levels in different parts of the building. You may have to do some dehumidification in other parts of the building to avoid having areas that may have create a mildew situation, or you may have outside air infiltration that will actually cause more damage than good by shutting it down. Also be careful about looking at the mission criticality of each part of your building. I mean, you can apply different maintenance techniques to building parts that are not mission critical. And in fact, you may run to fail equipment in those areas, but you may want to take special attention to areas that have to be maintained that are mission critical, again, like a data center. For more detailed information and support on reducing costs in unoccupied buildings, contact your building expert at Johnson Controls. We have the equipment, technology, and services to help you. We understand and can guide you through the stimulus and other procurement approaches. We're part of your community. We're proud to help power your mission.